because I grew up here, Blake, so I've known almost nothing but heartache except for the 2001 World Series. And you're still newer to the Valley, so you still got some rose-colored glasses on, which is good. You wanna be able to see things in the positive way. Arizona sports haven't tarnished you yet, but anytime a team has high expectations in the Valley, it's very rare that they meet and or exceed them, and it is just the burden that Arizona sports fans seem to have to bear here. But one thing that really stood out to me was a few weeks ago. I think it was leading into the hey, our video popped up on YouTube. So shout out Melinda for bearing with us through the technical difficulties here, and hello to everybody watching. Robby Baker, Blake Niemann, Fox 10 Talk Sports pregame. I'm into, I guess you would call it, kind of like mindfulness. I try to do affirmations in the morning, and I work on them. My little son, Liam, is 2 years old, but we do little affirmations in the morning to try to start off each day on the right foot. And I have a Google Doc of some favorite sayings and things I've read over my life. And one that I immediately added a few weeks ago was Brian Ward dropped a beautiful line on us in one of the press conferences leading into the NAU game, that expectation basically is the thief of all joy. And he said that, and it struck me in the media scrum. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh man, that's a good one. I'm writing that down in my little doc of affirmations and things that I want to focus on for mindfulness. And that is the perfect summary of what ASU football is experiencing right now, because if this is last year, remember, they almost blew that game against Mississippi State last year. They were up big, and they had to hold on by the skin of their teeth to get that win. No one would have made it a big deal. And this year, going on the road to an SEC school, coming back, scoring 20 unanswered points in that hostile environment. Of course, they still lose the game. But it's not enough because of the weight of expectation. So obviously, against Texas State, you gotta beat Texas State. This is not negotiable. But as you move forward now, the season is not over. Of course, I think it's fair to say some of the clout, if you will, some of the shine goes away a little bit, just because people came into this year thinking, oh shoot, 12-0 national championship, here we come. It doesn't work that way in college sports. It doesn't work that way in any sport. Just because you want it to happen, it doesn't happen. And I honestly, this could come back totally backfiring on me. This could end up being a terrible take. I don't think losing to Mississippi State, it could be a good thing. It could be a good thing if this team uses it the right way, because when they lost games last year, the two that they lost to Texas Tech, we thought, okay, well, they started non-conference, but now they're in Big 12 play. That Texas Tech loss fueled them. And then they got to Cincinnati. They had some injuries. We thought, all right, well, they're stumbling a little bit here. They got a tough stretch. They got to play BYU. They got to go down to Tucson still. No, the K-State on the road. It was the opposite. They lost that Cincinnati game, and they were like, well, we're not losing again, and they go on the roll. So I'm hoping that this take ages well like a fine wine, and that this actually is almost a good thing, that they realize, okay, maybe we're not the shiny thing everybody said, but we have to work to become that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kenny would be in agreement with you in that it's a good thing to have a football team. He said himself that the best thing that could happen to our football team is facing adversity before conference, because once conference play starts, everything begins. And realistically, Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, talked about how the goal is to get two Big 12. Very difficult thing to do when you are fighting against the monstrous powers that be in the Big 10 and the SEC. As it looks right now across the Big 12, it is looking dire at best. Two teams in at the most. Now it's a long college football season, a lot of shakeup that can have around the rest of the other conferences. But as it looks right now, only way in, my opinion, going to be
you got to win the conference. Yep.
So for ASU's vantage point, that is, and he says that's not the goal. The goal is the process of each week, take game by game. But from a fan perspective and from an outsider's perspective, the goal should be win a conference championship at all costs. Now you have to win plenty of games to do that, but I think personally that with the way how polarized Big 12 is, I think that they still afford to lose conference play, still have a shot, because that's
9-3. 9-3 can get you there, and then you gotta get some tiebreakers and
super comfortable if you're an ASU fan all season sitting in that seat, because it's going to be really out of your.
That's the problem. You don't control your own destiny
you don't
then.
control your own destiny. One loss, you control your own destiny. I think it's possible for ASU to only have one loss. But I also think it's possible for them to have 2 losses in conference play and potentially more.
Anything can happen when you get into conference play.
Texas State game, just don't think just because they're named Texas State that it's just going to be a rollover. They've scored 50 points in their opener, 52-27 win. They scored 43 points last week. Their quarterback is a redshirt freshman, I believe.
500 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Crazy. And he's completing almost 70% of his passes.
Yeah, just unbelievable. Great young quarterback, doing some phenomenal things at the FBS or Group of 5 level. And they're going to be joining the Pac-12 next year.
Yeah, the new look Pac-12.
Texas State is on the rise. They're coming off a 8-win season last year. And Coach Kenny Dillingham has a lot of respect for their coach, their side. Kenny, I think is his name. And
he came from Incarnate Word, where they were at the FCS level, but Incarnate Word was a crazy offensive powerhouse. So Texas State.
I mean, they developed Cam Ward, actually.
That's where he was. Yeah. And then they bring the coach over to Texas State to revitalize that program, make it an offensive powerhouse, which he has. So Texas State is in that weird kind of territory in a Group of 5 level where you want to have success, but you don't want to win too many games because then a bigger school is going to take your coach away from you. But you mentioned their quarterback, Brad Jackson, and Bo Sparks, their leading receiver, 237 yards, 12 catches, 5 touchdowns already, too. So basically all of Brad Jackson's touchdowns have gone to one receiver. So if you're game planning for Arizona State, you kind of know what you have to shut down. But this is a Texas State team, as you said. They gave this ASU team trouble last year. And this was the kind of first sign that we saw last year of Sam Leavitt taking over a game late, making some big throws, making crucial, correct decisions in clutch time to put them in a position to come back on the road in San Marcos and get a win. And then that kind of, we saw more of that throughout the season. But the Texas State game was the first glimpse of that for ASU fans last year. We only have about a minute before we have to hit the break here, and then we'll come back and talk about Sam Leavitt's start to the season and our predictions for this Texas State game. But quickly, defensively, give me like 20 seconds real quick, Blake. Brian Ward, he's still going to be aggressive to slow down this Texas State team. Will he be as aggressive as we've seen him after some of the big plays against Mississippi State?
This is the thing with Brian Ward that he said. It's all about the moment, maximizing the moment, and players understanding the gravity of that. He said he run that safety blitz several times before. Had worked every other time. Done that. It was not the same play he ran in the Texas game, folks.
It was just the same result, unfortunately.
Same result, unfortunately. But he's run that play before. You got to be confident. You got to roll the dice, and so I don't foresee him changing his aggressive.
All right. Well, we will be back here in just a minute here with more Fox 10 Talk Sports pregame. Here we are back again, Fox 10 Talk Sports pregame. Shout out Bent and Melinda joining the chat here. Melinda had a good point. Blake, you were very close to the score prediction for the last game. You thought ASU was going to win, but the final score,
Yes.
you were very close.
Yes.
And I think, hopefully, everybody who's watching, bearing with us through the technical difficulties on here, I think we fixed our audio now as well, too, so hopefully you can hear the beautiful tone of Blake's voice more clearly. As we wrap up talking Texas State, ASU, then we'll transition to Cardinals here. Before we give our score predictions for ASU, I think we obviously got to touch quickly on Sam Leavitt. It has not been the Heisman campaign start to the season people were hoping. I know, Blake, we had talked that it feels, watching it, and you don't know what's going through Sam's head, obviously, but it feels from the outside looking in that Sam has tried to do too much at times, and he's trying to just hit home runs on a lot of plays, put some highlights out there, and I hope it's not unfair for me saying that. That's just I'm just a guy watching a football game. But it feels like that a little bit. And from listening to Marcus Arroyo and some of the coaches talk this week, it seems like their emphasis is on getting Sam back to taking the layups. Now, and that's not a bad thing, but taking what's there, and when the big play is available, take the big play. Not every ball has to go to Jordan Tyson.
Yes, the focus is definitely getting Sam in a rhythm early. That has been the emphasis for both Kenny Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo in their statements this week, talking about getting Sam some quick pass plays, some under route throws, or even they said some design quarterback runs just to get that juice going, get him better in rhythm, better feel for the turf, into the game a little bit better, rather than trying to do these rollout sling passes early on in the game and just come cold turkey into the game and try and do highlight reel plays. He has relied heavily on his number one target, Jordan Tyson. He's targeted him. He's connected with Jordan 18 times thus far this season, whereas the next closest wide receiver is Malik McClain, who has 2 receptions on the season, and that makes up the entire receptions for the entire wide receiver.
Yeah.
So he's been heavily relying on Jordan Tyson, which early on in the season kind of makes some sense, but Kenny Dillingham said, just because we're feeding the ball to JT a lot doesn't mean we're going to change our offensive style just because people say we need to target other people. ASU understands its identity. I think if you're going to see any change in this offensive look for ASU this week to help Sam get in more of a rhythm, it's going to be setting up the run game first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they came out against Mississippi State, and it was kind of Sam slinging the rock for a lot of that first half.
And it was 3 and out. And this wasn't Sam's fault, but it was quick 3 and out, quick 3 and out. When they were throwing it quick, the clock stops. They could never get the run game going, and then your defense is exhausted, and that's when you have some of the busted coverage on the back end, because it's inevitable, guys, when they're on the field for basically almost 30 straight minutes with only a 2-minute break when the offense goes 3 and out. It's hard to keep up the high level that Brian Ward demands on defense from his guys. It's
unfortunate that Kyson Brown, their starting running back at least for week 1, went down with an injury that's going to keep him out this week. But Kanye Udo from Army had showed some promise through the offseason, but was kind of behind Kyson Brown, at least for the start of this season spot. But he really put his name on the map, at least for Sun Devil fans who weren't familiar with his game.
He looked great on
Army.
Last Saturday.
Ran for over 100 yards. So did Raleek Brown. Raleek Brown showed me a lot. He's not just the juke you out, spin move. He can do all that. He can hurdle.
He can also run you over.
He can also run you
Take
over.
Your lunch money.
He can be tough in that way. So I think you're going to see some physical punch mouth football that you are used to from last season with the Cam Scattaboo of the world, who took Tempe's hearts by storm. I think you're going to see a little bit more of that this week to help Sam Leavitt feel more comfortable, more confident, and just allow him to be more successful this week.
So I'll answer Melinda's question here. I assume we're both confident ASU will win this game on Saturday. I think it's going to still be high scoring. Not any knock on ASU's defense. It's just because I think Texas State can score points. I'm not sure Texas State's defense is as good or good enough to slow down ASU, but I think Texas State's offense is going to be able to put up some points. I think it's going to be a shootout. I hope it's a game, like Kenny Dillingham said earlier this week, where you want to win but also play 4 quarters of good football so you feel good about the win. For Arizona State fans' sake, I hope that's the way this pans out. I think maybe it's 3 good quarters of football, if you will. I think ASU fans will feel good, but I think it's going to be 42 to let's go 42 to 31. 42-31. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. ASU winning.
I also think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I mean, when you look at the score from last week for Texas State versus UTSA, I believe it was somewhere around 42-36, somewhere around that range. But, I mean, this is a Texas State team. They can put up points. Their quarterback's done some really solid work. ASU's defense is going to be the best defense they've seen so far. I don't know if ASU will quite get to 40 points. They might. But I'm going to play it a little bit more conservatively. I'm going to go with a 38-31 final. ASU wins it, but it's going to be a close game, and ASU does get the win, but Texas State is going to show up. This quarterback is legit. They're going to put up some points. It was a very close. It was a one-score game last year.
One-score game last year, and you mentioned so far Texas State's put up 52 and 43 points. Granted, against Eastern Michigan and UTSA, but their offense is taking care of putting up big points like their fan base was expecting against quote-unquote lesser opponents. So let's transition quickly. We got about 10 minutes or 8 minutes left, give or take. Talk some Cardinal football right here because the Cardinals, Melinda says 35-26 ASU winning, by the way. Cardinals hosting the Panthers, home opener for the Cardinals. They get the big win on the road against the Saints to start off the season. Similar to ASU's win over NAU, there was periods of that game where you saw flashes of, okay, this is a pretty dominant Cardinals team. They go down, they pound the rock. James Conner, Trey Benson busts a 50-plus yard run. Oh, look, Marvin Harrison Jr. has a 50-yard catch, and he's targeted like 10 or 12 times. It seems like, okay, the offense is making sense. But then at the end of the game, the offense can't kind of get the job done, so to speak. They have to give the ball back to the Saints. The ball is in the defense's hands. And if it wasn't for a Buda Baker, Jalen Thompson, big tackle pass breakup in the end zone, we could be having a much different conversation about the start to the Cardinals season. But they say football is a game of inches, and that Cardinals opener was a beautiful example of that. You never apologize for winning in the National Football League, but the Panthers coming to town. We were just talking about it with our photographer, Brad Gasak, in the sports office. I do not know what it is about the Panthers. I don't know if they... I can't even begin to wrap my head around what kind of bad juju they've put on this Cardinals team, because no matter what the skill level is on either side, the Panthers just always seem to beat the Cardinals. I do not understand it. I do not get it. And it goes back to the NFC Championship game. What was that? Almost 10 years ago
2015.
now. Yeah, Cam Newton en route to
Super Bowl 50
to Denver. But yeah, ever since then, it just feels like Carolina just has the Cardinals' number.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it dates back to those Cam Newton days where he was doing his MVP performing season, doing his Superman stuff and, his air cam and cartwheeling into the end zone and all those different things. And, that was the prime Cam Newton, as prime as it gets. And that was a couple year stretch where the Cardinals just could not figure them out. And even last year, they couldn't, really figure them out.
That was basically the end of the Cardinals season, because they went into the bye week. They just beaten Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. They're 6-4. They got the bye week. Then they go on the road to Seattle. You're like, oh my gosh, the Cardinals could be 7-3, have a couple division wins stacked up. Instead, the wheels fall off, and they stumble out of the bye week
race.
And then they kind of find themselves in the wild card race. And one of the last weeks of the season, they go to Carolina, and you're thinking, okay, well, no offense, Bryce Perkins, he struggled. Or not Bryce Perkins, Bryce Young. Bryce Perkins, I'm thinking ASU football still. Bryce Young struggled a little bit. This Carolina team, what do they have left to play for? Well, they ended the Cardinals season in overtime. So, the Cardinals, and they said, to the Cardinals' credit, they said they're not necessarily using that loss as motivation for this game because it's a new year, there's new players. But Jonathan Gannon did say they have watched that film from last year, which is not something that Jonathan Gannon typically does. He even acknowledges he doesn't usually look back. It's all forward and process driven for this Cardinals team. But they've looked back on that game and said, all right, guys, there are teachable moments in this game. We did not play our brand of football. And as they're trying to build momentum and get this thing cranked up this season, they're looking back a little bit at that one with one eye, saying, we can't let that happen again.
Yes, they definitely can't let that happen again, but I think there were some good things to take away from week one against the Saints in New Orleans, specifically for the running back situation with Trey Benson. He could have possibly had his best game as a Cardinal against the Saints.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and then, to have a back behind James Conner, remarkable. I believe this is year 9 for him to be as productive as he is. Running backs are a valuable substance in the NFL. They are sometimes short-lived, so to be able to carve out a career that he has and still to be able to put up 1,000 yards like he did last season is remarkable. But at some point, as he continues to age, there's going to be body breakdown, and he's had some injury problems in the past.
He misses 1 or 2 games a year, which all running backs, you got to kind of bake it in. They're probably going to miss 1 or 2 games with something.
So to be able to have Trey Benson behind him like that, I think is super valuable. I think we saw the improvement of Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. on that opening drive or early drives in the game where he connected with Marv. And, Buda Baker's still doing Buda Baker things. That huge punch out at the line of scrimmage where the guy catches it, he would have caught the touchdown from Spencer Rattler.
Would have been going to overtime.
It would have gone to overtime, but Buda Baker punches it out. But I think there is still some concern for the offense to only put up, 21 points, 20 points?
20 points, I believe, yeah.
To only put up 20 points against the Saints. I think, you and I both expected them to score a little bit more than that.
Would have liked to see.
So I don't. There's some mixed emotions.
I think, real quick, before we do our score predictions and wrap up, I asked Kyler about Trey Benson's run, how nice it was to see the second-year guy pop a run like that. And Kyler said, obviously, it was great to see. And then he said he told him something before the run to kind of, I don't know if it was what Trey should be looking at, if they felt good about the play call. So I followed up, as any good reporter does. And I said, well, what did you say to him? And Kyler just laughed and just said, I said something. And I was like, well, I don't know. I really want to know what you said. You're like teasing me here, Kyler. But it was great to see Trey have that big run.
And how about real quick, Will Johnson with that hit. If you haven't seen that Will Johnson hit, go look it up on social media or watch it back because
I'm still feeling pain from watching that. It was textbook too.
That's welcoming to the NFL, yourself to the NFL.
That's you imposing your will on somebody else instead of the reverse. We only got about 30 seconds here, so we'll go quick. I think the Cardinals win. I'll say 28-17. I think the Cardinals start off 2-0.
I'm gonna go 28-20.
28-20. There you go. So we're very similar in our thoughts here. We said it last weekend. We were hoping for a clean sweep across all the teams. It did not happen. We're
optimistic.
We're optimistic again this week, and we don't really talk a lot of Arizona Wildcat football on here, but the Arizona Wildcats will be playing Kansas State tonight on Fox 10, so that'll kind of get your football